I thought I'd just give a kind of personal history of my experience with meditation and mention some of the traditions that I've been part of and some of the kind of categories of technique and how they help, just to help you maybe decide, if you're interested in meditation, what might be a good path for you to go down. So I first got into meditation, I think at the age of 12. I read a book called The Center of the Cyclone, I think it was called, by someone called John C. Lilly. And it was talking about, I can't really remember to be honest, but it was like spiritual development and a little bit about psychedelic drugs and some stuff about meditation. And then later on, I was a teenager, 18, living in Brighton, and I got into meditation again through what was then known as the Friends of the Western Buddhist Order. And this meditation was very much based on two main techniques. One was watching your breath and counting your breath in cycles of 10. And the other one was metta bhavana, which is developing loving kindness. So you'd have this exercise where you'd first of all develop a feeling of loving kindness towards yourself, and then towards benefactors and friends, and then towards strangers, and then towards enemies. So those two really good practices. So you're developing, explicitly developing your compassion with one practice, and developing your focus and presence with watching the breath. And they're really good techniques. At the same time, I was getting really into Tai Chi. And through Tai Chi, you could even call that a type of movement meditation, and there certainly are aspects of that depending on exactly what you're practicing. But through that channel, I got into a thing called Qigong, which is kind of like I call portable Tai Chi. It's smaller, repeated movements generally, or standing postures and stuff like this. It's less kind of elaborate than Tai Chi, but it has a lot of the health benefits, and it starts to build some of the meditative aspects. And through the tradition that I was learning Tai Chi in, I came across a Taoist meditation method, which is rich and deep and wide. But the main technique in it is a thing called inner dissolving, where you put your awareness in your body and you notice where things are not smooth and flowing. And that can be on any level, from the very physical to the very, very subtle. Emotions being relatively gross compared to how subtle it can get, but emotions are a great place to work. So you rest your awareness on these blockages and allow them to resolve themselves into emptiness. So that's an interesting technique, and it's one that you can probably make some headway with on your own using videos and DVDs and online programs. The organization behind that is called Energy Arts, but it's kind of good to learn it from a master, because there's this idea of like a transmission going on with the practice that you can pick up on that can accelerate your progress. And then speaking of those kind of traditions, there's Dzogchen, which is very much about that. So it's very much about a lineage where through something called mind-to-mind transmission, you learn to put yourself in this state where you are basically enlightened. I mean, that's the goal. You have to practice, get familiar with that state before you can kind of claim to have much attainment on the path. It's about familiarity and, plenty of actual practice time on the cushion. But basically, it's a kind of psychic transmission, which is pretty woo-woo. And, again, we can make progress on our own, but it's usually when we kind of connect with a real lineage teacher that we can kind of supercharge our practice. But they're, inner dissolving and Dzogchen, they're both pretty out there, pretty woo-woo in terms of working with energy and kind of psychic phenomena and that kind of stuff. And some people like that, and other people just want to do something like mindfulness, right? So a lot of mindfulness, it's kind of separated from all these more esoteric aspects, and it's just like a practice, like the Friends of the Western Buddhist Order practice, where you focus on your breath, and you might focus on it in your belly or in your chest or in your nose, and just cycles of 10. You don't need to believe anything about energy or chi or psychic phenomena or karma or rebirth. And there's a whole movement, Buddhism without beliefs, that and mindfulness really is kind of very closely related to that, where we're just taking the actual practices and we're seeing what they do for us and noticing they do a lot of good stuff for our mental health and physical health and overall well-being. So we do the practices, and you don't necessarily need all that other stuff. And for some people, certainly in my younger life, all of that other stuff was in some way a turn-off to the whole meditation thing, because I was very, scientistic in my worldview. I didn't kind of accept. I was kind of a little bit open to kind of more interesting phenomena, like ESP and all that kind of stuff. But I was pretty much like, no, if you can't measure it and science doesn't confirm it, it's not real. We're a little chink in there, but that was my basic position. And that's fine. It's like that you can still get a lot of benefit from these practices. Another really good one in mindfulness that is actually really closely related to the Taoist thing is body scanning. And they do this in Vipassana as well. So you put your mind in your body and you just see what's going on. Just become acquainted with your physical reality of being, of existing. And that on its own is just absolutely amazing. You know, it's totally relaxing. It brings you into the present moment. It gets you in touch with your body and your emotions. So you can do that, you know, from any tradition, from mindfulness, from Vipassana, or from the Taoist thing, where you would then have that would be more like a preliminary. And once you've got really familiar with the territory, you would then apply some of these methods to release bound energy within, you know, that you find within that process. But again, you don't need that dimension. You can benefit a great deal simply from running your mind through your body. Sometimes it's from the feet up, sometimes it's from the head down or whatever, depending on the tradition and the lineage. So yeah, that's some of the meditations. There's probably loads of others I've done. I did some, I can't say his name, I don't want to get it horribly wrong, but Thich Nhat Hanh, sorry, I don't mean to, you know who I mean, the guy that died recently, amazing teacher, very humble. And he had these meditations where you had these little phrases that you'd say as you breathe in and as you breathe out. And as well as focusing on the breath and the relaxation aspect, you'd also be kind of sowing the seed of a kind of concept, a beneficial, positive concept while you did that. So that's some of the more cognitive meditations. And I come across that also with the NKT, which is another tradition, and there's some politics there, but you know, a lot of their meditations are about an idea from the Dharma, you know, from the Buddhist teachings, and you kind of meditate on it in almost an intellectual, cognitive way to understand some of the principles. Another one is Shine, which is from the same tradition that I got Dzogchen from, which is, well, Shine without an object is basically Dzogchen, right? They're getting pretty esoteric here with the words, don't worry. But Shine with an object, you can get a pebble. This is a really good practice. You just get a pebble and you just rest your awareness on that pebble. And that's a great kind of preliminary, and you can do it, you know, it can be your main practice because it stops your mind wandering off, brings you into the present, has all sorts of benefits. Now, there was one other I was thinking of mentioning, but it slipped my mind now. So, oh yeah, mantra. So a lot of, you know, it's kind of crossover mantra meditation. It's like, well, it is. It's sonic meditation, isn't it? So you have a mantra like Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Or you have a visualization like with Medicine Buddha, where you visualize this blue doctor dude in the sky and his medicine pouring down, healing you, while you do the mantra, which is Teyato Om Bekenze, Bekenze, Maha Bekenze, Ranza Samagate Soha. And then the sound is like the meditation. And I find sonic meditations really, really appealing because they're so tangible. So even though there's a visualization there, and I'm not a particularly visual person, I can feel the vibration. I can feel it kind of loosening up my knots and, you know, tensions in my body. So yeah, mantras are a really good one. So yeah, there's a whole bunch. There's loads, you know, whatever your tastes, whatever your kind of esoteric beliefs or lack of, there's something for you out there in terms of meditation, and it's going to have a huge benefit on your life, whichever one you pick, I predict. Okay, so thanks for watching.